Hi, how are you all? So we're getting stuck over here in lockdown, even more than we were when we first met on this virtual journey. So what I thought I would do this evening is actually, how do you visit Israel? How do you actually visit Israel when everything is closed off to you? So I am going to have you visit Israel by visiting our sense of humor. Even in this extreme situation that we find ourselves in, we are, I suppose, going to get through it partly because of our sense of humor. So before I actually do some of, introduce you to some of the stuff coming out at the moment during the period of Corona, let me just introduce you to my room that I work in, my workspace. And after that, we'll actually get on our virtual journey via the humor to be found at the moment in Israel. So this is my desk, and you'll see on it evidence of my work life to a large extent, and also a little bit about who I am, I suppose. In the foreground over here, you'll see this beautiful little piece of sculpture. There are a couple of members of its family over here, and I suppose that tells something about my past, my growing up, my early years in South Africa. What else do we see on this desk that reminds one of South Africa? Well, of course, on my laptop, there is a little picture of Madiba, of Nelson Mandela. The only other South African piece over here is, in fact, these three stones. These three stones that I picked up walking, these pieces of quartz that I picked up walking on a beautiful walk through one of the game reserves, my favorite game reserve in South Africa, the private reserve of Motswari, where some of you have been with me. Little evidence of some of the people that I've travelled with in the past. These are three of my favourite young people, Zach, Charlie and Rose, from the Sandler Manzano family with whom I've travelled a couple of times. I hope you guys are doing okay in your lockdown in New York City. And then just generally a couple of other parts, I suppose, of who I am. Here you'll see a blue box. Some of you will remember you also put coins in it while you were growing up for the Jewish National Fund. And a portrait of Che Guevara, part of my youth, and some of the figures that had a big impact on me as a young student trying to work through the complications of being a young person in South Africa in a very problematic political situation. I'd like to now take you on a journey via some of the jokes that have come out, and it will be a bit of a Hebrew lesson, and at the same time I will translate them and try and explain something about what Israel is via these jokes. If you move up slightly above the desk, past this little watercolor by Aunt Harriet, you will see that there are two pieces of wood with something written on each one of them. And above them there is a postcard on each of them. The first one, if you look carefully what it says, I'll read it to you in Hebrew and then I'll translate it. It says, יפה זה בעצם כל דבר שמתבוננים בו באהבה, which means, in English, beautiful is any object that one looks at with love. And I think in some ways that really is one of the crucial elements of the work I've tried to do over the years in the guiding that I do. Going to places and looking at them with a particular lens. Next to it is another piece which really has a powerful meaning for me. And it says in Hebrew, במוקדם או במאוחר, כל אדם ממציא לעצמו סיפור, אותו הוא מחשיב כחייו. In English it says, sooner or later, every person invents a story that he turns into his life, or invents a story which becomes the meaning of his life. Now, above it, of course, is a postcard. If you look very closely at the postcard, I'm not sure whether you can make out something that looks familiar to you. I'm going to go even closer to the bottom third on the right, and then take you up to the top third on the right. What it is, these are photographs of the synagogue in Oswiecim. Oswiecim is the little town next to Auschwitz. You travelled with me to Auschwitz in recent times, you probably went with me into this little synagogue where we either spoke to the local person who runs the museum, or we might even have sung a song or done a little bit of praying inside the synagogue. These two statements are really statements that have informed the way I do my work when I sit at my desk, as I do occasionally. So, after introducing you to the place where I used to not work more than just 1 or 2% of the time, my office, now of course things have changed dramatically, I want to introduce you to Israel through another lens, and this is the lens of Israeli humour. When I started imagining what these would look like, these virtual journeys, I imagined going to Tel Aviv and wandering around and showing you parts of Tel Aviv. I imagined then going to Jerusalem and showing you some of my favorite parts of Jerusalem. The reality is now that we're not allowed to do that. So we are stuck basically at home. In Israel, humor has always played a very interesting part in our lives. I've always thought that because of the existential issues that we've dealt with since the inception of the State of Israel, we've had to turn to humor to just get through the really hard times, in the way that the Jewish people did the same with Jewish humor. But we have a slightly different type of humor over here. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to whoever created the cell phone, because this has been one of the lifesavers for me, and I'm sure for many of you, during this period. I want to start off by showing you two very funny pieces that I received that are universal. And after having a look at these two universal shots, I'm sure you've seen them yourselves. We'll have a look at what makes Israeli humor, specifically Israeli humor. So the first one, you've all seen it. I know you've all seen it. It goes like this. This is the first time in history that the original is from China and the copy is from Milano. I'm sure it has been seen by each and every one of you. It's one of those that is going around the entire world. And of course there is it makes sense to everyone. You understand immediately. Nobody needs to explain it to you. And the second one, the shot that you are seeing now on your screen, is of course one that I hope you don't mind that it's a woman bending over in front of the fridge. But once again, you don't have to explain anything. We're all at home. One of our great fears is that when this is over, we'll get on the scale and find ourselves 15, in America maybe 15 pounds heavier. Over here we might find ourselves 15 kilos heavier, which is even worse news for us. But let me now show you some of the specifically Israeli ones, and let's see how much you pick up on them. I might have to do a little bit of Hebrew teaching as well, but that's also a plus for you. Okay, so some of the humor over here, like the one you can see on the screen in Hebrew, which I obviously have to translate for you. It has an Israeli touch to it, but this you can probably also relate to as a universal one. What it basically says is Corona, sandstorms. We had terrible weather over here a few days ago. An asteroid on its way to planet Earth. And then specifically Israel one, sirens for incoming missiles. Friday the 13th, universal. The last chapter of Fauda, which by the way, if you have not seen Fauda, the Israeli television show, you have to see it. It is both very, very Israeli, but also has a universal element to it. And then, of course, the last part, which feels very Israeli, but maybe it works for you out there as well. It seems as though God brought his son to work today, and he pressed all of the buttons. So it's one that works very well over here, maybe because of the way that we feel, even those of us who might not be particularly religious people, that God has in some way a role to play in Israeli society, at least in the eyes of some of the people over here, and he or she is that unknown entity that we can always call on, either in a moment of great fear, like that wonderful piece, short little poem from the Yom Kippur War, which went, "Dear God, who I do not believe in, please save me at this difficult time." And in many ways, that is part of what is going on over here. Let me take you to another great little piece that is going on, and let's have a look at this as it comes up onto your screen. So you'll see on the screen, this is in Hebrew and in Arabic. And the interesting thing about this one, it actually was written originally in Arabic, but it's one of those little pieces of Israeli society that works in both languages. What does it mean? What is written on the page in Hebrew? It says, for all of those of you who are complaining about the change in the taste of the shawarma and the falafel during the last few days, do not worry. It is because the workers are washing their hands. And then it ends with God's help, Bezrat Hashem, the original taste will return soon. Very Israeli shawarma, falafel. All of you have, those of you who've been in Israel have probably bought a shawarma and falafel, and you've sort of gone, oh, as the shawarma and falafel sellers prepare the food without doing what you probably do in the United States, which is wear disposable gloves. So you should know that according to the local understanding, as part of that great taste is due to the fact that we don't have the plastic gloves that you use in America for the food. Maybe has universal elements, but very much an little bit of Israeli humor about the shawarma and falafel, and the way we are slightly less germophobic than people are in other parts of the world. So some of the great screenshots that are coming across on WhatsApp relate very much to a very particular situation that we have over here. As I'm sure you're all aware, Benjamin Netanyahu, our present Prime Minister, has a number of cases that he was supposed to appear in court for, to answer for cases connected to corruption. And of course, one of the jokes one can expect now is what the impact of Corona has been in terms of his political career. So just two of them, and excuse they have a particular slant, which I'm sure you can understand. The first one says, the one that's up on your screen right now, says, we thought we were going to put Bibi Netanyahu in jail after the elections. And look what has happened. He has put all of us in jail. That's what the first one says. Look at the next one that's coming up on your screen right now. We have just received an extraordinary announcement. The first time in the world when a man survived because of Corona, Bibi Netanyahu. So you'll see that the political situation over here is actually impacting on the type of Corona jokes that we have, and not difficult for you to understand, but I think the next one that you're going to see on the screen, you really have to have local knowledge to be able to get it. Let's look at it together. So look very carefully at this one. I know you don't understand the Hebrew, most of you, although some of you do. And it says quite simply, it's now official. The end of the world is here. Now, it seems to make no sense. But when you look carefully at what this ultra-Orthodox man is carrying, and it's in fact, there is a circle around the words on the plastic bag, it gives the name of a chain of stores. And the chain of stores is called Tivtam. What does Tivtam sell? Tivtam is a chain of stores that really comes as a result of the Russian immigration to Israel. So we could be talking now about the fall of the Iron Curtain and large numbers of Russian Jews who finally make it over here after years of not being able to come and live in Israel. But these Russian Jews have a very different Jewish identity. The vast majority of them have been disconnected from any type of formal Jewish life and any type of formal Jewish practice because of the impact of the Soviet Union. And the supermarket stores, the stores that open called Tivtam, sell non-kosher items. So what you're seeing over here is an ultra-Orthodox man carrying a plastic bag that says on it Tivtam, which means if he is prepared to carry a bag, clearly indicates that the end of the world is about to arrive. Clearly an in-joke, but one which works very much if you are part of Israeli society. I want to show you one or two more. So one of the decisions that has been made over here is to turn some of the hotels in Israel into places where people who have tested positive for the coronavirus can actually be in isolation. One of the first hotels chosen in Tel Aviv is one that some of you might have stayed in, Dan Panorama. So of course, immediately up on the screens of WhatsApp comes the following slide that you see in front of you at the moment. For those of you who don't understand Hebrew, it's so Israeli. I can't imagine anything more Israeli than this. And it says, I understand that people who have tested positive and are only very slightly ill with corona have been put into the Dan Panorama Hotel in Tel Aviv. I will wait until the Carmel Forest Hotel is used. Basically what Israelis are saying with tongue-in-cheek humor, we are not prepared to be sick with corona when the hotels being used are only 4-star. We will wait for the 5-star hotels to be used, and then we are prepared to be sick. Last bit of humor, which maybe is not totally Israeli, although it did feel, I have to admit, it felt very Israeli to me, is the one that you're seeing on your screen in just a moment. And here it comes. And it says the following: Dear children, if I die from corona, God forbid, this is what you will inherit. 58 kilos of pasta, 60 kilos of rice, 30 kilos of kitniot. What are kitniot in English? I can't even remember what kitniot are in English. I think it's grains, probably grains. 30 kilos of flour, 20 kilos of sugar and salt, 130 tins of canned, different types of canned vegetables and fruit, 25 frozen pizzas, 1,200 liters of water and mineral water, 78,964 rolls of toilet paper, and a huge, huge overdraft in my bank because of this. Please do not fight over this. There is enough for everyone. So as this comes off the screen and you see me for the one last time on our little outing today, so I am now going to have to be very creative in the next days as we sit over here in this lockdown. Fewer and fewer opportunities to go outside. Very frustrating, I have to say. Very hard to keep your spirits up. I hope that these little videos that I am doing does something to keep your spirits up. I have to admit, it's my therapy at the moment. I'm doing it probably not because I want you to come on my virtual journeys. To be totally honest, I think if I wasn't doing this at the moment, I would actually be finding it very difficult to get through these long days. So what can I say? Please, if you like what I'm doing, just push a little like button, watch the videos, and give me a feeling that you're out there, because being cut off from all of you is so difficult. You cannot imagine how difficult it is to not be getting on a bus with you, not be getting on a real bus with you today. So see you 2021, maybe even earlier, on a real bus. Take care, folks. Goodbye.